Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live stream here. Thanks for joining us. We got another guest on tonight. We got Mike Knapp with MK Motorsports on the channel. Just seeing nobody's. Oh, yeah, we got people joining the stream here. So, yeah, like I said, we got Michael Knapp with MK Motorsports on the channel tonight. He is another automotive YouTuber, and from looking at his channel, it looks like he has a wide range of mechanical skills and do just about any automotive task. So, thanks for joining us tonight, Mike. How are you doing this evening?
Doing good. Enjoying the cooler weather we're having.
Nice. Yeah, I seen you had some tornadoes down there recently. Hey.
Yeah, we ended up that we had a bad tornado roll through Idabel, which is southeast of us, and I think they had ended up having a few fatalities out there. So that's kind of a bad deal. That's the thing about Oklahoma weather; those tornadoes, they just spin up fast and they just do a lot of damage, and then they just disappear. So
yeah, wow. I deal with snow up here, but no tornadoes up here. So
yeah, tornadoes. I mean, we usually the springtime. That's usually when we get the worst of it all, when you're coming out of winter and everything like that. But
yeah,
here this past season, everything was just at night, and that's the thing that just freaks me out more than anything. Is like, at least during the day you can kind of see where they're coming from, but at night it's just like, good luck. Sirens go off, and grab the wife, the cats, and the kids, and let's pile on down to the cellar. So
yeah, no kidding, hey. Got a few guys showing in the chat. Leighton Welding says what's up, and Joseph Moore is a regular in the chat. He says he lives in Lawton,
Oklahoma.
There you go. Is that close to where?
That's about an hour and a half from me, just down 44. So
yeah, so like I said, we got Mike with MK Motorsports on tonight. If you guys have any questions for him, just drop them into the chat. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like your background? And we know you're from Oklahoma, but how did you get into working on LSs and transmissions and all that kind of thing?
So originally I was always kind of a Ford guy. I had a little V6 F-150, and I was trying to make that fast. And then I bumped up and I got me like a 2003 Mustang GT New Edge, and kind of started really doing some stuff with that. And then I'd say about 12 years ago, I traded in that Mustang and I bought a 2000 Pontiac Trans Am. And that's really kind of where I started getting my LS experience from. Bought it. It had a LS1, had a big, huge cam in it, long tubes, basic bolt-ons and such. And so from there, I just kind of went from there, and I really enjoyed running it. And then it was a 6-speed car. And I had a buddy of mine that had a Camaro that lived where I used to live, and we'd go to the track and we'd race, and we were always just like friendly competitive all the time. And he always had an automatic, and I just could not just outshift that automatic. He goes, "Man, you need to put an automatic in it." He goes, but go big or go home. He goes, "Put a 4L80 in it." And I said, okay. So I found me some junkyard 4L80 and tried to figure out how to get it put in there, and got a stall converter and a flywheel and all that stuff, and got it put in, and finally got it working after a while. And I was like, man, I like this. Yeah. And that transmission ended up burning up eventually, because I was running nitrous and God knows what else on that Trans Am. So I was like, well, I don't really have the money to fix this, take it somewhere and have it fixed, but let me see what I can do. So I ended up finding me like an ATSG book, and bought that, and I took it apart, and I learned how to fix it, and I put it all back together, put it in the car, and the damn thing worked. And nice. And then at that point in time, I'd gone turbo in the Trans Am. And so that transmission lasted me a year, but I was always reading up on 4L80s and finding out new stuff to do. And so when this one finally let go, I rebuilt it and did a few other things. And eventually I ended up putting one of the Extreme Automatics manual valve bodies with the trans brake in it. And that was a whole different level of just crazy. And then one night I decided, I was like, I really wanted to get competitive with the Trans Am. So I was like, well, I'll build a power glide for it. And so I started collecting stuff for a power glide, and I just finally kind of got to the point, like, I'm really tired of this. Me and my buddy were sitting around and goes, well, let's put that engine and turbo in your truck. I'm like, okay. And so we did. So we started pulling the engine out. The transmission's already out, so I pulled the engine out.
Yeah.
And so we swung this 6-liter that was in the Trans Am into this truck. So this that 6-liter is actually a built Wiseco piston, just forged bottom end.
Oh wow.
Job. So basically the engine and the turbo and everything were off the Trans Am. And so we just I bought Trick Turbo's manifold and put it in there, and then found me another 4L80 and built it up and put it in and went from there with it.
Nice. So that's interesting. I didn't know you were a Ford guy originally. Like,
yeah, it was kind of one of those things. I've always had a Ford. Right. When I turned 16, my first truck was like an 82 F-150 long bed. And then I had like a little Ford Ranger, and then I had a couple of the 2000 year model F-150s, which are my favorite. Like the 99 to 04 are my favorite F-150s. I actually wouldn't mind getting a hold of one of them and doing an LS swap in like a short wide regular cab, because I think that would just be wild. So
yeah. So what made you change brands? Like, what made you decide to buy the truck?
It was just I had a lot of friends back in Ada that had LS. They had formulas and Trans Ams and Camaros. And, I was seeing guys get the trucks, and they were doing stuff with the trucks. I'm just like, man, they just made so much power, and it was so easy compared to that modular V8 that Ford has.
Right.
And, so it's like everything. I mean, it costs you $600-700 to do cams in that GT. And I was just like, I'd rather just, you can get that stuff so cheap for the LSs. And I just kind of went that direction. They're so easy to work on, and they're so fun. So I was like, well, I'll just kind of keep doing it. So
yeah, you can't beat the bang for the buck.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, like a good tune-up is night and day difference on them.
Yeah, for sure. So we can see your project truck behind you there. You've kind of told us what engine is in it already. What else can you tell us about it and what's been done to it?
So it's a Gen 4 block 6-liter. It's got a set of Wiseco forged flat top pistons, H-beam rods. It's got the upgraded tool steel wrist pins for the pistons, stock crank. It's got stock untouched 317 heads. I've got it's like a Brian Tooley stage 2 turbo cam. It's actually like the Little John Motorsports back when he was doing,
right.
But it's the stage 2 turbo cam. The turbo on it is a forced inductions S480 with a 110 AR, which it spools it up really quick. Trick turbo, T6 divided manifold. And then the rest of the stuff is just 4-inch downpipe all the way out, and just all that stuff I built myself.
Yep.
Transmission behind it is a 4L80. Kind of a few little ins and outs in that. I got a 3500 triple disc converter, and got a 5-inch aluminum drive shaft with 1350 yokes with a set of 373 gears and a Quick Pro differential in it.
And that's got to be a pretty heavy truck. And I know when
5350.
Oh, okay. That's actually later than I expected.
It went a streetcar takeover last year. A little deal they do here in Oklahoma and throughout the states. I went best of like 12.1 at like 119 mile an hour. And I started looking at the log, and by the time I got it figured out what was going on, I'd already got eliminated from the round. But I was like, well, this thing's pulling all my timing out, because my intercooler was too small at the time. So I was like running full power at 7 degrees of timing. So I was like, that doesn't make any kind of power. So
yeah. Joseph Moore has a question in the chat. He's asking if you're drive-by-wire or drive-by-cable.
I am drive-by-wire on this thing, still, even with the Holley system in it.
Okay. And have you had any trouble with that? Like, I know I've heard of some guys when they run boost and drive-by-wire, it sometimes has problems. But have you? I
had a lot of problems with that thing when I first went turbo, and there's some settings in the throttle body stuff that you can kind of do, and eventually I ended up just like ignoring the 35. I think it's like a I can't remember the code right off the top of my head, but I'd get that code, and it's a throttle pedal correlation code, and I'd change throttle bodies. I changed TPSs on the side of the throttle body. I changed the pedal and all that stuff, and it would be fine for a while. And then I thought I had it licked. About 2.5 years, didn't have any more problems with it. And then about 2 months ago, I went out to go drive the truck, and it just did the same thing for no reason. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I was already on the fence on Holley at that point in time. And this just went ahead and pushed me over to one side. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go that route. So,
right. So just going back to the vehicle weight, like I know on heavier vehicles, when you start pouring the boost to them and the power to them, sometimes the drive line doesn't hold up so well. Have you had any issues with breaking axles and that kind of thing? Or
no, starting this project out, I knew this was going to be a big, long drive shaft. And a lot of people on these trucks, they'll go with a 2-piece drive shaft, which that still may be a possibility in my future. But there's a drive shaft company here in Oklahoma City that they handle a lot of the drive shafts for the Street Outlaw show back before they really got way too big.
right.
And he built the drive shaft for me. The thing's like 83 inches long.
Oh, wow.
It's massive, but it's a 5-inch all the way through, and it's got good U joints. But like I said, I mean, it's held up just fine. I haven't had any problems with it. It hasn't started to bow or anything like that. So
yeah, right on.
But yeah, I got a drive shaft hoop in place and stuff like that, just in case, because that's a long pogo stick.
Yeah, no kidding. So, and have you done all the work yourself on that truck, or have you farmed it out?
Outside of the short block being built, and the drive shaft being built, it's pretty much been me doing all the wrench turning on this.
Okay.
And like I said, the short block, it was built 5 or 6 years ago in Enid, up north of me. So, and it's been holding up just fine. I haven't had any problems with it. So
that's good. And how much boost do you run, or how much power do you think you're putting out?
Probably, once I get this Holley kind of dialed in and working like it's supposed to, I'll probably go 20 plus pounds on it. And
are you running E85 or what?
Yeah, it's got a flex fuel sensor in it, so it's been running on E85 mostly since it's been turbocharged.
Okay.
Which it's pretty plentiful and easily available here in the city. I know places, other places around there, it may be not so easy to get a hold of or come by. So it's kind of, it's like, the gas station down the street sells it, so why not,
Yeah, up here it's almost impossible to get. Like there might be 1 or 2 specialty places where you can buy it. But.
Yeah, and I know there's some like fuel distributors that you can buy. Like my local little speed shop here in town, they sell 5-gallon pails, or they can even order like a 55-gallon drum of like, I think it's Renegade E85 is what they sell, and it's straight E85, like not like. You may get a E70, you may get E50. You just never know. So it's a race blend E85. So
right. So tell us a little bit about MK Motorsports. Like, is that just a YouTube channel, or do you have like a business where you do work for customers? Or
I don't really do a whole lot of customer work. Some of the transmissions, like I do some customer transmissions and things like that. But as far as like MK Motorsports was pretty much just the YouTube channel.
right.
That's kind of just what I started going with. It was just easy. It worked out. So I don't really have a business or anything. And this is just kind of like some word of mouth, maybe I'll do a transmission here or there and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's more just for fun for me.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing the YouTube channel and social media?
I think I've been doing this about 3 years.
Okay.
Like for the first year, nobody knew about it. I was just kind of doing it because I'm just like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be very good at this and that. And then I finally like, okay, Facebook, I've got a YouTube channel. Don't kill me, and it's kind of daunting to put yourself out there, especially in front of the camera, just to, because you just don't know what people are going to do, how they're going to react to it. And so finding out ways to do content and stuff like that, that's kind of tricky because a lot of that stuff is you have to shell out some money to purchase a product, and then you have to find the time to do it and everything like that. So it just kind of, it was more for fun for me.
Yeah.
And, it's just something I've really kind of found a liking to, making educational type YouTube videos on, hey, I'm doing this. This is some stuff that I've figured out and things like that. So it's kind of fun to do it. It just gives me something to do basically outside of work.
Yeah. Perfect. Right on. So you mentioned you've done some transmission work, and we've got the 4L80 in my truck. That's one of the modifications I want to do to my little turbo truck. I want to get it ready for I want to try and do a drag and drive event next year up here in Canada. So looking to upgrade from the 4L60E to the 4L80E. So since you've done that swap before, can you kind of take us through what we need to do that swap?
What you need to do that swap? Well, obviously you need a 4L80. Obviously you need you'll probably need a flex plate, kind of depending on what kind of converter you go with. That's going to be the determining factor. A good converter, and sometimes the drive shafts will be long enough. Sometimes they won't. Being that I knew kind of what I was going to be doing with this, I was like, let's just get a custom drive shaft done. Yeah. That way I don't have to worry about it. And then on top of that, it's a month of Sundays long. So
yeah.
There's also you have to add it's an input speed sensor. It's
right.
There's your vehicle speed sensor, which is on the back part of the transmission. Then there's another speed sensor. It's like the input shaft speed sensor or something like that. So it can determine like a slippage in between the two sensors and stuff like that. And so you'll have to actually pin that into the ECM, things like that. I know ICT Billet, they make an adapter for that. That's just a plug and play deal. It already comes pre-terminated. You just stick those pins in the ECM and plug it in, and then you hook up just plug this little adapter harness in, and it already converts the pins over. Or you can just repin the end of the connector. I actually saw like a really cool idea that LT on his channel did. He was doing the swap on that orange Copo truck he was doing.
Right.
And so there's like two pins that you're not going to end up using. And so he pulled those pins out of the transmission connector, and then he put the ISS sensor on that. And basically that's all he did. He just put like a little jumper about that long in it, and it worked out just fine. I was asking if he was having any problems, because I know it's a kind of a Hall effects twisted pair kind of wiring. So I didn't know if he was getting any interference, but he said he hadn't had any problems with it. So I was like, well, that's a cool idea. That guy really just thinks outside the box.
Yeah, I love his channel. It's a beautiful truck too.
Yeah, it's yeah. I know he was selling it too. He's asking like 28 grand for it, but I mean, it's like the truck was absolutely clean, and of course he's so meticulous about what he does. It'd be completely worth it.
Yeah. So when I'm going to do this 4L80E conversion and I'm looking through the junkyard for a transmission, is there certain ones I should be looking for, or will any year work? Or
any year will bolt up to the LS. So I think there's about three styles of it. There's like the 91 to 96, and that's the older style case, and that has the two cooler ports right there behind the bell housing. 97 to 03 is the split cooler ports.
Okay.
And then there's like an 04 and newer, and that's more of an electronics upgrade than anything else inside of it. But they have the split cooler ports, one in the front, one in the rear. Okay. And I actually prefer that style of case.
Okay.
I haven't had any real good luck with the older cases. I had a buddy of mine, he brought it to me, and we put one together for him. And I don't know if it was something in his tune, because he was running Holley way before I was. Okay. And we had hell keeping clutches in this thing.
Okay.
And he went to I had another transmission I built for a guy, and he ended up buying that transmission, stuck it in the truck, and he never had another lick of trouble out of it. So okay. I don't know if it's something something particular that I've missed in that older style case or whatnot, but the split cooler port is the ones I usually go for.
Okay.
I like the 04 and newer. The electronics that are already in the transmission are a little bit better.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of their final rendition of the 4L80 because they don't really mess with it too much anymore now.
Okay. And wasn't there something like they changed with like the lockup clutch or something? One was like pulse width modulation, and
that was your forced motor control.
right.
And I don't really know I know one of them had a screen. It was like pulse width modulated, and the other one doesn't have the newer ones don't have the screens on them.
Okay.
There was something about it, and there was the older style. They have a different transmission pin connector. It's way different than what you like the 4L60 looks like and everything. The 4L80 and the 4L60 look like they share the same connector. It's just different pin out, but this was a completely different thing altogether. The first time I ever saw one, I was like, oh man, somebody broke the connector on this. And I got to look, it's like, oh, this is the old one, you know? So, but yeah, that was kind of what it was. But I know it actually, like I think some of them may have been in that second series case, and they ended up changing that out or to that pulse width modulated. My book will probably tell me. Heck,
yeah.
Let's see what it says. I'll look it up here real quick.
I'm going to go through a few comments here while you're looking at it. Joseph Moore says he needs help with his Gen 3 drive-by-wire. What kind of issues are you having with it, Joseph? And Jim Shorts, I'm pretty sure that is my son, who is supposed to be working at Dairy Queen right now, but must be sneaking onto his dad's live stream.
Nothing wrong with that. Let's see. I think it changed. It says here the new forced motor for like 94 and up. They changed it. They're all pulse width modulated, but I think they changed the frequency on the newer ones. They went from the new force motor operates at 614 hertz versus the 292.5.
Okay.
On the old one. So that's what, according to that ATSG book I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Which anybody that's interested, you can actually look this book up on Google, and there's a couple sites that you can actually print that thing off for free instead of having to buy it.
Perfect.
So
basically 04 and newer is the latest.
04 and newer is a pretty good good transmission to go with. I mean, even the older, like an 03 or something like that, you're not going to have any problems with it. It's some of the little differences between them, like the rear output, the tail housing bushing that bolts to it. There's a difference in size in the bushing. So you'll know real quick that when you try to put the old one in, it'll just drop through. So you'll have to go and get a different one. That's when you go to a transmission shop and they ask you what year the case is. That's kind of one of the things they're looking at. For the most part, everything else though is about the same.
Right. And then aren't there two versions of like the two-wheel drive where one has like a slip yoke and one has a bolt-up flange or something like that?
So there's actually 3 different tail shafts in the two-wheel drive 4L80s.
Okay.
There is a full splined shaft, which I prefer that one because it'll take a slip yoke or whatever you want to do. Most of them are already drilled for that bolt, so you can use any one of them. There's another one that's kind of like a half spline, and it's got an O-ring on it. And then there's a really weird one that just has like this weird sleeve over the top of it.
Okay.
And I've never run into one of those. I actually have one of the half ones with a O-ring sitting on my shelf over there that I swapped out for a guy. But yeah, the full spline, I like the full spline a lot better. But just because, like I said, most of the stuff I'm going to do is going to be a slip yoke. Now, if I knew I was doing a 2-piece drive shaft or something like that, I would probably go with one of the half yokes because it doesn't really matter at that point because it's going to be bolted on and you're going to get your movement at the carrier bearing.
Right. Joseph has a couple more comments. It says it's hard to find the pumps for them. I'm not exactly sure.
Pumps for the 4L80s, pump housings. Yeah. they sometimes some of the transmission shops, they get some reconditioned ones, and they'll clean them up. A lot of times, if you get the wrong converter spacing, or you don't have enough movement in your converter, it's a gear gyrator, whatever kind of pump. It's not like the 4L60s where it has the plastic vanes and stuff like that. So you end up running into a situation where you'll push that gear set into the housing, and it'll actually chew it up. And I think that's what one of the transmissions I have here has done, because you'll get it'll take a second for it to build up pressure and then start pulling itself and going into gear and stuff.
Okay. Good to know.
It's just kind of luck of the draw. I mean, I've got a handful of transmission shops here in Oklahoma. I got 3 transmission shops in Oklahoma City that I can get parts from. And, so it kind of, and the price of pumps, they vary from, $175 to, however much. And then there's 3 different types of pumps and 3 different types of cases. So you kind of have to be careful, because if you put the wrong pump to the wrong case, certain cases, they have a boss that is not there anymore. So if you get the wrong pump, you actually have to plug one port on this pump to keep it from losing all your pressure. So, and I think that information you can, I think they just call that like series or case type, and you can look that up on Google, and it'll, I think TransStar did the information on that, but they'll show you the difference between, this is what you're looking for between all 3 cases and all 3 pumps, and it'll tell you what pumps can work with what transmissions and things like that. So
cool. Just gonna look at a couple more comments here. We got Mark Burren in the house. He's actually a friend of mine.
Cool.
Used to work with him up north. He's actually he should be paying attention here. He's got a old OBS that he's doing like a frame off restoration and putting an LQ9 in, and so he's going to be looking for a 4L80 here shortly. So thanks for joining us, Mark. Good to see you in the chat. And then Joseph Moore, going back to the Gen 3 drive-by-wire, he says it's very slow off the start. So have you had any ideas on what would cause that?
The thing, you may not have the segment swap in there, and it may be stuck in second gear.
Oh, okay.
So those things default to second gear for like a second gear start kind of thing. So it really it takes a lot to get it going, because you have a 248 first gear, and then it drops to it's either a 158 or a 148. I can't remember. So it's got a big drop between first gear and second gear. Okay. And it's really, long legged from the get go. I think a 4L60 is like a 306 first gear or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. You've got to do the segment swap.
Yeah, that's another thing I forgot to mention on that, is the segment swap on the HP tuners or whatever. Yeah. The thing with Holley is you plug the Holley in there and you just tell it it's a 4L80, and it does whatever magic it needs to do.
Yeah. Okay. So once I've got that 04 and newer transmission picked out of the junkyard and stuff, is there any modifications you do to it? I know Sonax makes some different.
Sonax is a great. They make some really good stuff. I've used their stuff on some 6L80 stuff and some 4L80 stuff. I usually throw the SureCure kit that they make for the 4L80. There's an actuator feed limit valve that they want you to put in there. However, it requires their $400 reamer.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to buy a $400 reamer.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think TransPro, they make an AFL kit that'll do 6 transmissions, and it comes with a reamer, and it's $120 off Summit or Jegs. I think that's what I paid for one of them. So instead of doing Sonix's, I end up doing theirs, just because those things wear out. But that Sonix kit, it does pretty good. It gives you the no walk bushing in the back, because they have a tendency to walk that case bushing out sometimes. And so I do that. And then Sonix also makes a rollerized case bushing that uses that same bushing. That it doesn't come with the SureCure kit, but I can probably dig up the part number if anybody's interested. I can find it, but you can actually buy that off Amazon or eBay or something like that, and they're like $20. And but Sonics actually makes the whole kit where it comes with some shims and the instructions and things like that. So I do that. I do the dual feed model.
Right.
That's definitely, they like, even the transmission kits that you buy today, they have the stuff to do the dual feed modifications in that. And I usually just I stack the direct drum. You have to drill the direct drum for a bleed hole as part of the dual feed setup, but I usually put like 6 clutches in it. And the direct steels are a little bit thicker than the forward steels.
Okay.
The clutches between the forwards and the directs are the same. And so I ditched the wave plate and put a
Extra
6 steels and 6 clutches in that direct and put it all together. And that works pretty good. And then with the intermediates, lose one of the 4L80 intermediate steels and put a turbo 400 intermediate steel in it, because they're a lot thicker, because the 4L80 runs 4 clutches for the intermediates. The 400s run 3 clutches.
Okay. I know on like Sloppy Mechanics, they're big fans of like that Transgo HD2 kit. Do you ever install those, or
I actually put one of those in, and that kit is really good. You can actually do a lot of stuff with it. Just don't do the thing where they drill the hole for that pressure relief valve. That's every place I've ever seen. They're like, don't do that.
Okay.
Jake Shoemake from Jake's Performance, he had a whole huge post on that about, if you look through it, he goes, yeah, this is good, this is not necessary, do not do this. He's got some good information on that. And that's the more I've built these things, the more information I've got. I read up on what other people have done. That's kind of how I've come to where I'm at now. The new thing I want to try out is that overrun clutch deal, which.
Okay. What's that about? I haven't
Okay.
heard about.
So that is something that you actually modify the valve body for. Okay. So when you put your 4L80 in drive, your typical drive overdrive, that 4th position, the overrun clutch does not engage. Okay. Now, if you were to put it in like 3rd gear, 2nd gear, 1st gear, this extra overrun clutch engages, so you have more holding power in your 1st, 2nd, 3rd gears if you're manually shifting it. So what this does, this was more for like plow trucks and stuff like that, because they were blowing up sprags and things like that. That's kind of the reason they developed it. And so you can put it in drive, so every gear has that overrun clutch engaged, and you don't have to pull it down into 3rd gear or whatever like that. So that's kind of what they did with that. So it kind of is it's not really necessary if you kind of know what you're doing, but I mean, a lot of people, I don't know. I'd like to play with one just to see what it is. The new, I've actually done a couple of the accumulator deletes in these, and I've actually had some pretty good luck with them. I didn't do it on my truck just because as heavy it is as it was. They're like, yeah, you don't really want to do it on a big heavy truck, but a couple of Trans Ams that I built these 4L80s for, I put it in. Okay. And they seem to like it likes it. And when I had that Extreme Automatics valve body in there was no accumulator with it, so the shifting was just it was crispy. It hit, and it hit hard, and you knew you were in gear. So
yeah. So just going back to the HD2 kit and the Sure-Cure kit, can you do both of those, or is it like one?
You can kind of use them both at the same time. As far as like the valve springs and stuff in the valve body, I would probably stick with the Sure-Cure side of the Sonics part of it before I did that. But I know that HD2 kit, it comes with that heavy duty snap ring for the intermediate clutches, which is a must.
Right.
Don't use the bolts. There's 2 bolts in the case. One of them holds the 4th gear ply clutch.
Okay.
And one of them holds the center support. Use what comes in your rebuild kit. Don't use that, because I've put those in and I actually had to drill both of them out.
Oh, wow.
And luckily, once you cut the head off, they're a through bolt, so you can actually get an easy out in there and pull out the rest of it. So I don't recommend those. Yeah. They do come with a set of springs for, I think it's the direct. It has a stiffer set of return springs on the direct clutch pack. So that's a good one to put in there if you've got it. I mean, it's not necessary, but
yeah,
you know, I don't even buy the HD2 kits. I just go with that SureCure kit and get a good set of factory clutches.
Yeah.
And like the Red Altos and stuff like that, I've always used just the Borg-Warner high energies that come stock in those transmissions, and I've had great luck with them.
Okay. And as far as rebuild kits, is there a certain brand you prefer, or where do you get those from?
Most of your transmission shops, they're going to sell a rebuild kit with like a Ray Bestos brand. I think Ray Bestos is now the one that owns like the Borg-Warner stuff.
Okay.
But like a factory master rebuild kit from Ray that comes at any of your transmission shops, most likely they're going to be a Ray Bestos steel and clutch and stuff like that. And like I said, I've never really had any problems with them as far as components go. They've always been pretty good. So
right on. So let's talk about converters for a sec. Like, I know in a big heavy truck like that, if you get a converter that works well in like a Fox body Mustang or something, it's probably not going to work that great in your truck. And you mentioned you've got like a 35 or 3600 triple disc. Is it an off the shelf converter, or did you
I guess you could call it an off-the-shelf converter. One of the transmission shops that I do business with here, they actually are a converter shop.
Okay.
And he built this converter for me. I pretty much told him, I said, it's going in a 4L80 in a crew cab truck. He goes, okay, let's put a triple disc in it. And he goes, I don't recommend doing a single disc. And I have burned up more single disc clutches from Yank, PTC, stuff like that. Even in that Trans Am was like a 3,800 pound car, and I would just annihilate the lockup clutch in them for some reason. I don't know. So I will never do another single disc in anything.
Yeah.
4L80. As far as like stall speeds go, I don't have the vocabulary and the knowledge to determine that. This 35 seems to work fine for this truck.
Yeah.
I think if it was a little bit lighter, I would probably go with a little bit lesser stall. But I've got a buddy that's got a 4,000 stall in a Camaro, and he dailies it.
Oh wow!
So it's like, pick your poison. It's like you can whatever you feel comfortable driving with.
Yeah,
I mean, it is pretty loose on the bottom end. So like when you're taking off, it does take a little bit to get it going, but it couples up really good, and it pulls really good once you get on top of it.
Oh, that's good. And how long have you had that? Like, has it lasted well for you?
So far on this build, like I said, I bought an old converter from somebody. It was a new converter, but it was a small housing with an adapter ring on it.
Okay.
And that didn't last 3 months.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I drove it around for another year and a half before I pulled the transmission in that converter. And I sent that converter to that shop that I got my new one at, and he cut it and cleaned it, and I ended up selling it as a fresh rebuilt converter. And then I bought that triple disc, and then I went through my transmission and freshened it all up. And it's been 2 years on that, and I haven't had any problems with it. It went to a streetcar takeover, and I made 5 or 6 passes, just at 18 pounds of boost, and it did everything it was supposed to. So
yeah, perfect. So let's talk about your Holley Terminator system that you put in a couple months ago. You mentioned one of the issues was problems with the drive-by-wire on the stock system. What else? Like, what are the reasons that you decided to switch from the stock computer to the Holley Terminator?
So the stock ECM, you're pretty limited to what you can do with it. There's some hard parameters in there that you can't get around. Doing a 3-bar OS on that, you've only got a limited amount of space for resolution for your VE tables and stuff like that. Right. With the Holley, you can pick whatever you want your values to be. If you want a small, like low end, like your 0 to 105 kPa, you can have a small one, and then you can really expand on that. I mean, you just have way more expandability and ability to adjust things and control things with the Holley from what I've seen of it so far. And like I said, I mean, like I think Friday was the first time I've driven the truck with it on there. So it's been with work and everything. It's just been hard to try to get things in, and I'm still trying to figure out some of the IO stuff that I'm messing with and things like that. But so I mean, the Holley doesn't come without its quirks as well. Like,
Right.
I know on the drive-by-wire stuff, I originally these trucks, these 03, 04s, I think maybe in the 05 and 06s, they still have the 8-wire throttle body.
Right.
And I don't understand why Nick Williams or any of these people, they do not make an aftermarket 8-wire throttle body.
Right.
Everybody's like, oh, you just use that X-Link or whatever. But I've heard so many stories of those things being just a pile and just a pain to work with. So I ended up going with the 6-wire throttle body setup on this Holley kit that I bought, because I knew there was a lot of throttle bodies available to me, and I'm running a Trailblazer SS throttle body on this now.
Right.
And then the other thing you'll run into with it is Holley wants you to use these particular part number gas pedals.
Okay.
So there was a couple companies that made some adapters to use your factory truck throttle pedal, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but there's got to be a way around it. So I actually ended up doing some research, and I saw where a couple of guys had done some things. And so I actually repinned that harness connector with the factory connector, plugged it in, and everything worked.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, well, that saves me $30-40 on an adapter, and I don't have to change pedals, and the pedal looks like it's supposed to be there.
Right.
So aesthetically, it works well.
And how hard was the install? Like, how difficult is it to swap from a stock computer to the Holley system?
So I actually did the integration on this. So I actually still have factory working gauges, my power windows and locks. My air conditioner works. The electric fans are still controlled by the P59 computer that the truck had. Basically, what I did is I just peeled the harness out, pulled all the fuel injection stuff, all the coils, all the O2 sensors, and stuff like that, and got rid of it. I had to piggyback a couple of sensors I needed a tach signal off the crank sensor. So I had to kind of build me a little adapter there to make that work. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward setup. I mean, if you didn't want to do the integration, you were just going to just pull it all out and just put this in there, it pretty much is, it takes longer to pretty much yank the factory harness out than it does to actually put the Holley harness in and everything. It's just the hardest part about it is trying to figure out where you wanted to mount the ECM and stuff like that. So, and there's not a lot of people there's not a lot of like information online, like where you want to mount the harness. They don't make mounting brackets and stuff at the Silverado. So where the TAC module was on that's where I actually mounted the Holley ECM. And then I built a bracket for the expansion module I bought, which gives you an extra 8 inputs and outputs.
Okay. And is that the one that like communicates by CAN bus or something?
Yes. Yeah, that's the CAN bus one. The only downside to that one is there's a lot of like the Terminator X has like a rev limiter, launch control. You can do paddle shifts. You can do like all kinds of little like preset systems in there. But those have to be on the main system. They won't work through the IO module.
Oh, okay.
So like any kind of like triggers that you want for something else, like if you want to run sensors or things like that, you put those on the IO. But like my flex fuel will actually work on the IO. I've got a flex fuel sensor on that. So like anything you want to add to the system will be fine on the IO, but anything that's kind of integrated into the software needs to be on the main 4 channels. So
good to know. And did you have any trouble? I know some guys have mentioned the harness that comes with the Holley isn't the greatest. Like, did you have any trouble, or did you?
I haven't found any issues with it yet. I've got a friend of mine in Hennessy that he's got a Dominator system, and he's just been plagued with issues with harnesses and things like that. And so far, so good. I've had pretty good luck with it. I've got a couple friends that run Holley systems on theirs, and they haven't had any problems with it. So I think it became so popular. I think they just got inundated with like orders. So they were just trying to spit stuff out as absolutely fast as they can. I think they ended up farming some stuff out overseas and stuff like that. So
tough to keep the quality control up.
Well, I mean, even everyday stuff, like even with my industry, we're having trouble keeping up with parts and things like that, mags and.
Yeah, I think every industry is having the supply chain issues right now.
Yeah.
One Chava asks, what's the discussion about? We've been talking about transmissions and Holley Terminators so far. So actually, we've got a video here of your first drive with that Holley. Why don't we pull that up?
But yeah, that's what I liked about that. I mean, you can see the factory tack works, factory speedometer works, you know, all the factory gauges were working. And that's kind of what I was going for. You know, back when I had the original P59, you know, I had the gauge pillar pods and everything like that. And it's like, I'm tired of looking at that. I just want to do something nice and subtle. So that's kind of how that went.
Yeah. So what injectors are you using with that system?
The fuel system on this truck, the whole thing is a Deechworks system.
Okay.
The injectors are the EV1 connector. They're a 1500cc injector.
Okay. So how, like, was that just, I know a lot of the Holley systems just have like a drop down menu where you can pick your injectors. Is that one of the options in that menu, or how did you?
No, that's not but they have a tab where you can pick your, you know, a custom. They have like the FICs and some of the ID and stuff like that. So a lot of people, they'll get their information and they'll use like an ID equivalent to what they have.
Right.
Deechworks actually has really good injector data for the Holley system. So they've got a way you can put it in there and you can dial in your injectors exactly the way, you know, with the injector data that they have. So they have a spot for that in Holley to do that.
Okay. So you can just custom enter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just pull it off Deechworks website or whoever. If it's not there, if you know, any injector that's worth its metal, you know, is going to have good injector data. And I mean, I know I had Snake Eater 1500s in here originally. So, and I know Snake Eater, their injector data is already pre-populated in the Holley. So that was kind of cool for those guys. But yeah, there is a place to do the custom injection install, which is a lot easier than the Holley HP, because depending on if you have a return fuel system or not, you know, you have to pick this cell here and you have to make it all the same because it's boost reference and stuff like that. This, you just put in the injector data and it takes care of it.
Yeah. Tell us a little more about that Deechworks system. What all does it include? And tell us a little more.
This was kind of a sponsor deal.
Okay.
So I have the Deechworks fuel tank in-tank module that they have. It's a DW400 fuel pump. That fuel pump actually feeds into one of their 5.5 liter surge tanks, and that has 3 pumps in it. One pump I run just on the engine, and then I have a second stage that runs the other 2 pumps. And then from there, it runs up to the engine, fuels the engine. Anything that comes off the return goes back into that surge tank. And once that surge tank gets full, you know, it has to have a place to go. So it gravity feeds back to the main tank. So it's always got some kind of a movement of fluid, so it doesn't overheat or anything like that.
Okay. And how much horsepower does that system support, or liters per hour, or what's the capacity of it?
Man, to be honest with you, I don't know how much. I guarantee you though, it'll clear 1,000 wheel horsepower on E85. Okay. I mean, with three 400 series pumps on there. Yeah,
that's a lot of.
There's a lot of fuel, and like I said, the one that's in the tank, its only job is to keep that little bitty surge tank full. That's it.
Yeah.
So, and they said that if you're going to run 3 400s in there, you need to run a 400 to keep up with it, just to keep the tank full. So
You got a video of that or something here?
I think that's the one that's just in the bed of the truck. That's that final system,
Okay.
the surge tank and everything. And what that is 2 fuel filters, pre-filter, post-filter, and that tank. That's what houses the three extra 400s that are in that.
Yeah.
So that holds like a gallon and a half of fuel.
Yeah.
So
another comment here. I don't know how much you know about heads, but Brian is asking thoughts on putting 799 heads on an LQ4. What I've heard is 799 and 243 heads are good, but they'll lower your compression quite a bit if you don't mill them. So
actually, I think on the LQ4 it will raise the compression, because I know the 317s are like a 72 cc head,
okay.
And I think the 799s are like a 68, 69 cc. So you'll actually gain some compression on it. As far as the tune, you may have to back out of some of your timing a little bit, because you will run into high cylinder pressure and you can get into some spark knock and things like that with the higher compression.
Yeah, cool. So I see you've got like a lowering kit and stuff on that truck, and I noticed on your channel you've installed like traction bars and stuff. Do you want to talk about your suspension setup on that?
The front end is basically a stock front end as far as like control arms and things go. I have a 3-inch drop spring up front, but it came with a 1-inch spacer, and I was kind of running the wheels I had on it originally. They were rubbing, so I put those spacers in there. So it's kind of about like a 2-inch drop up front, okay, with a set of Beltec drop shocks up front. The rear end is a flip kit, okay, and it is a rear hanger, a factory shackle, the axle flip on the, and that's what gives the crew cabs a 5-inch. The crew cab, I don't recommend getting one if you want to do suspension stuff, because they're just so quirky about them.
Right.
The front hanger's where everybody goes, and they just cut the rivets out and everything, and they put that front spring hanger in there.
Yeah.
The crew cabs, they're welded solid.
Oh, great.
So they make so the rear spring hanger, there's a different hanger that you can put there, and it's kind of counterintuitive. You end up going with a factory shackle as opposed to like a 2-inch drop shackle.
Okay.
To get your drop. So they actually make like DJM and some of these other, they call it like a lift shackle, and it's like a 1-inch shackle, and that would actually drop the rear end of it a little bit more. But I don't have a C-notch in it, so I'd be just pretty much sitting on the bump stops.
Yeah, yeah. So that'd be no good.
And I put some of the Speed Engineering traction bars on it. I was going to try those out, see what I thought of them. They seem to be working pretty well. And then from there, I put a Tahoe Suburban rear sway bar and kind of fabbed up some mounts and stuff to make that work. And I like that. It kind of keeps the rear end a little bit more planted, a little bit more square.
Okay. And those Speed Engineering traction bars, are they similar to like a CalTrac type setup, or?
No, they're more like a glorified slapper bars. What a guy had told me about them. Okay. He left a comment. He goes, "Those things are basically like just glorified slapper bars."
Right.
Yeah, probably so. I think the CalTracs are a little bit better because they pull out the front bushing and the leaf spring. You change that out to like a solid bushing,
right?
And it kind of keeps the wheels planted and everything. And I think they may be a better choice
right.
If you got a truck that wheel hops. This truck doesn't seem to wheel hop very much, so I think it can probably get away with these. But I'd be curious to see, what my 60-foot times would be between like these Speed Engineerings and like I said, a CalTrac. So right. That may be something coming up in the future.
Yeah.
Projects just for fun.
Yeah. I noticed. Oh, go ahead.
I know there's like about $100 difference, $150 difference between the two of them. So
yeah, I think I'm going to give the CalTracs a try, and they have like a monoleaf rear spring and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard some people. I got a friend that's kind of big in the RST truck groups and stuff like that. Because I had thought about doing like a drop spring like that, and he goes, "Man," it kills the ride.
So, oh yeah.
So, I guess you just kind of pick your poison. Like, what are you trying to go for, ride or performance? So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So another thing I noticed on your channel that you did to that truck is a hydro boost conversion. What all? That's definitely not in my turbo truck, but in my Suburban, I want to do a hydro boost conversion because it's uh, definitely lacking in the brake department. So what all is involved in that?
So, as far as like the hydro boost conversion on these trucks, the like 99 to O2 and like some of the four-wheel drive stuff that have the typical steering box and like drag link setup and everything,
Yeah.
it is pretty much a basic. You go pull one off of a Tahoe or something like that they usually have them on there, and it's a direct bolt-in swap. You grab the pump, you grab the hydro boost unit that bolts to the firewall, get the pedal. That's probably almost as more crucial than the actual hydro boost part itself, because they change the offsets of that little stud for the brake pedal. And I know some people have not changed that pedal out, and they've had horrible just brake issues just due to the fact that their brakes are spongy or they're hard to push or something like that, because they just don't have that leverage. But I found a pump, and I got the hydro boost unit and all the lines out of a salvage yard.
Okay.
And as far as like the pump goes, the only difference between a hydro boost and a non-hydro boost pump that I have found is there's a extra vent port
Okay.
on the hydro boost unit. Now I know a lot of people, they can, they tee in some stuff like that, and they make it work. Um, I've had heard people say, well, there's a difference in like your pressure relief on the pump and things like that. So I was like, it seems to be working fine. My deal is I have a rack and pinion steering, so it kind of changes things up. So I like the fact that I don't have to mess with the brake stuff, because it's constant brake pressure.
Yeah.
My service trucks, I've had some diesel service trucks. My service truck now, it's all hydro boost, and I just like that pedal feel. My Mustang was hydro boost, and I just love the pedal feel of a hydro boost.
Yeah.
So I had to like cut and modify the line, and I was like, well, I had some of the 3/8 swedge lock fittings, and I just made me a short fitting to go right there into the line and everything, and it worked out just great, and I haven't had any problems with it. Where was I going with that? I went with Russell stainless steel braided brake lines.
Okay.
They make a kit for these trucks. It's a direct bolt-in kit.
Okay.
I did have to do some modification. I actually had to get two different rear ones, because I did the 15-inch brake conversion on that, which I know you were interested in that.
Yeah.
So like we'll go ahead and segue into that one. So
Sure.
that conversion, 1320 Wheels sells that kit, and what you need is like the OBS style K1500 front brake calipers,
Okay.
brake rotors, and brake pads, and that's what goes on the rear. And once again, LT thinking outside the box, he just goes, well, you just swap the brake lines left to right, and they'll bolt right in. I built brackets and stuff like that, and that's kind of why I had to end up going with a different set of rear brake lines.
Right.
And I don't think even if you did swap them side to side with the Russell stainless brake lines, I think you still would have to have some kind of different brake line, and that's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
On that. But the front ones, it's pretty straightforward, and it really just tightens up the pedal feel. And I mean, you get good pedal feel and things like that.
Yeah. So the reason for doing that 15-inch conversion, is that just because there's more wheel options and stuff for as far as like drag radials and
well, this truck originally was a brake rotor disc brake a disc brake system in the back factory,
right.
and they would not fit a 15-inch wheel.
Right.
So with that 15-inch conversion, you're running a little bit smaller rotor, a little bit smaller caliper package, so you can actually fit the wheel on there. And I've got a set of F14 Ford Stars on the back that are 15 by 10, and they bolt right up in place, and they don't rub or anything like that. I think I'm running like a 315 60/15 tire on it.
Yeah.
So
Cool. And you mentioned you had rack and pinion steering in that. Is that something that you swapped into it, or?
That's actually factory. Rack and pinion on these trucks are factory on the two-wheel drive.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if it's like the Cat Eye and newer setup, but I know like the four-wheel drive trucks, they're still they have a different front end. They're still that drag link and gearbox setup.
Yeah.
So like on the four-wheel drives, it would be a direct bolt-in setup. And so like the thought of like going into like an all-wheel drive version of this truck, it's like, well, you'd probably be better off just doing swapping frames, because there's so much cutting and welding and fabrication just to get shocks and shock mounts and things like that. Because everything is just in different spots on these. I mean, they're night and day difference on the frames.
Yeah. A couple more comments here. One of my son's buddies being a smart ass, asking about thoughts on putting an LS in an 03 Jetta. I think it'd be a tight fit, but give it a try and let me know how it works for you. Another guy asking sizing a radiator for LS3. I'd probably just talk to Summit Racing or something.
I did a Griffin. I think it's like a 55 241 in my Trans Am with that 6-liter.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the F-body guys, they go with that radiator. They stand it up and they go with that one for like turbocharged setups. Griffin makes a pretty good radiator. It's an aluminum. It's I think it's still a single pass radiator, maybe a dual pass, but had good luck with this one. With this truck, I converted from the factory like 28-inch wide radiator with a mechanical fan to the I think it's like a 32-inch or 34-inch with the electric fans.
Yeah. Brian says be cool makes a good rad. So
yeah,
watch it.
Heard good things about those guys.
Yeah. So we've been chatting for over an hour here, so maybe we'll start looking at wrapping things up. But you got any tips for someone who's new to this LS game, or any mistakes to avoid, or areas you wouldn't cheap out and take shortcuts on?
Where I wouldn't cheap out and take shortcuts on is anything that has to do with safety. And that can go anywhere from what you're doing in the garage, like jacks, jack stands, things like that. Make sure, you're not going to get crushed by your own project, because there's nothing more ironic than dying by your own hand.
Yeah.
As far as the truck part, if you can't steer or stop it, you don't need to be in it. So I wouldn't cheap out. There's good options for it, but I wouldn't cheap out on stuff like that. As far as it, just beware of trolls. That's the biggest thing I've found in the LS world. Is just there's so many trolls on the internet. I mean, if it doesn't sound correct, they're probably messing with you.
Yeah.
But as far as it goes, I think planning goes a long way with LS projects. If you were gonna get something, let's say like a New Edge Mustang chassis or Fox body chassis or something like that, I personally, I would never go with like a factory ECM. I would go probably to like a Terminator X Max or a Dominator or something like that. Because by the time you spend the money on all the controllers and things like that to make it work, I figured it up when I had HP tuners and stuff like that. I actually figured up the price difference between like a boost controller, a 2-step, like fuel gauge, wideband, HP tuners, boost controller, all that stuff. And what I had in that truck versus the Holley, I think there was like $100 difference.
Yeah.
And like I had the MVPI2, and I don't even think they make that anymore. I think it went to the 2 Plus, and now they got the 3 out, I think.
Yeah, they do.
But and it's like, I mean, that with credits is like $500.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, but yeah, I did a price comparison. By the time I got the Holley system versus what I already had, I think the Holley system was still like $75 more. I was like,
yeah,
there's so much better option. I think it's just a lot of it is just planning is probably is the best thing to do, is plan it out, kind of figure out what's your end game. I hate buying parts more than once.
Yeah, okay.
Buy the wrong injectors. Oh, well, I had 80-pound Siemens Deca injectors and I wore those out because I decided to go E85 at the last minute. So,
Right.
just there's plenty of good resources on the internet, and you'll get good information from a lot of places.
Yeah.
Just the thing is, ask questions, find you a good LS community that they all want to help people out. I mean, feel free to send me messages. I know Randy will do the same. I know he's got a really good group for his Facebook group. But I mean, there's good information out there, and just when in doubt, ask questions. And of course you're going to get somebody that's going to pop off something stupid, but
Yeah.
just keep asking.
Yeah. Another comment here. This project is a 59 Buick LeSabre with a 376 LS3. That should be a fun car.
I think you can put just about any kind of radiator you can find in that.
Yeah, it should have lots of room to work with, eh? Yeah. So what, your truck, do you have any future plans for it? Do you have it the way you want it, or are there any future upgrades you got planned for it?
I think future upgrades on this, outside of getting all the Holley stuff final dialed in and things like that, I wouldn't mind doing like a coilover conversion kit on this on the front, and like the dual action shocks in the back. I know Viking with I think it's Atomic Fab makes a really good kit that's bolt in and everything. Kind of just comes with everything you need. I'd like to do that. I'd like to get that thing pretty kind of in a kind of a dual street strip. If I want to go out and do autocross in this thing, I've got a racetrack up near Tulsa.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a round track. It's a road course thing.
Yeah.
People in Oklahoma know how it. So, but something like that. But my thing is I just want to get in and go cruise around and have fun and surprise Corvettes and everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unsuspecting. So
yeah, no kidding.
I've had people, like, we were out tooling around on the highway one night, and they were messing with a couple of my friends. There was a Trans Am and a 69 C10 that was turbocharged, and he didn't know that either.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they go like, "Oh, we'll just mess with the big old crew cab and just put them to your tail." And they met up with me at the meetup spot, and they're like, "Dude, what is in that thing?" I said, "A couple car seats."
Wow. Hey, I love it.
So it's kind of fun. Like, my ultimate goal is to get this to where my wife can jump in this thing, go to the store, go run some errands, and she doesn't have to fight trying to keep it running or starting. It stalls out at stoplights, and that's kind of my end goal.
Yeah.
Got AC, everything works.
Yeah. So was that a challenge with? I think you mentioned you have the trick flow manifolds and stuff. Were you able to keep the AC compressor in the stock location, or?
Yeah. The AC just bolts to, like, down there at the lower corner, and the way the trick manifold is, it essentially looks like a factory manifold, but it just has the kick out. I think, aren't you running a hooker setup on yours?
Yeah. And that
it's kind of similar. It kind of has that bullhorn that comes up, and the turbo just kind of sits on top of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it is. And it, spark plug access is relatively easy if you can get around the downpipe and everything. So, but I mean, for the most part, you don't have to reload. I think a lot of guys, they'll go with like the Duramax dryer. And
Right.
There's a gentleman down in Florida who makes a hose conversion kit.
Okay.
That you can get the Duramax dryer, and they get like a longer hose that it kind of routes it out of the way of your downpipe and stuff like that. So
Good to know. Yeah, with the hooker manifolds I've got, my compressor was in the way, so I'm going to be looking at like a top mount conversion or something. But for now, I don't have AC. But
yeah, but what is it, like negative 10 there right now?
Yeah, colder than that right now. But yeah, if I go down, I'm thinking of going to LS Fest in Vegas next year. That I might need AC for that trip.
Yeah. They had the SEMA show. I had some friends up here that they went to that, and then they got to see the F1 cars show up. And
oh, nice.
I was like, man, I wish I didn't have to work. I'd love to have gone to see that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Joseph Moore is asking, where did you get your downpipe? I'm guessing you probably made it, but
I built it. Um, I bought a 5-inch to 4-inch flange that goes on the back of the turbo, and then I just bought that J bend from Vibrant.
oh, right.
It kind of curves and it has a whole bunch of bends in it and everything like that. And I just kind of built that, and I built some 4-inch V-band flanges with it and everything, and I just kind of fabbed up my own deal. So
yeah,
and tied the wastegate into that, and that's so much nicer when you don't have to listen to that wastegate blowing off at full steam. And just screams. That train, I had 2 wastegates on the Trans Am, and it was just once that thing got into boost and the wastegates opened up, you couldn't hear anything. I was like, I don't like that. I like hearing the turbo.
Yeah. Harry is going to try and make it to LS Fest in Vegas as well with his Buick. Okay, so what about future projects or future plans for the channel? Like when you've got this truck the way you want it, do you have any other projects in mind, or what does the future have in store for MK Motorsports?
I would actually get back to my roots. I would actually like to find me like another New Edge Mustang and do an LS swap, but do like an LSA or just a blower on top of that, and build like a Terminator LSX. You know, so just go with the Terminator or a Dominator system in it, but just build a 6-speed manual transmission LS Terminator deal. And I think that would be kind of a cool project. But
yeah, perfect. Sounds like fun. Anything else planned for the future?
No,
like a 99 to 04 Ford. Is that going to be making an appearance anytime, or?
Man, if I can find one, it's in good shape. That may be something going on there, because I've always had a thing for that second gen Ford Lightning, and just I'd love to do something like that. Even if I did go find me a Lightning, I wouldn't mind, even going back to like the modular V8 stuff. And but aside from that, I mean, I don't know how long I have to actually keep a modular motor.
Right.
To be honest with you. Like I always wanted a Lightning, but it's just like, these things were rated at like 300 and something horsepower, and you can do a cam swap on a truck and go 400 horsepower, and you're just like 400 naturally aspirated, and you have a supercharger on top of one. It's like, it's just kind of it was me and my friend, we got talking about that, like back in the day when it was like, man, when you had 450 horsepower, you always had a blast with that, and now it's just like 450 horsepower, your stock V6s are coming out with some of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing what you can buy off the showroom floor right now. Hey?
It's insane, the kind of horsepower. I mean, I think it was the new Z06, like 600 and something horsepower, like naturally aspirated.
Yeah,
that's an insane number.
You can buy a
naturally aspirated car.
Yeah, you can buy a Dodge truck with 700 horsepower off the showroom floor.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna start wrapping things up here. But Harry's got a question here that kind of ties in with the last thing I was going to ask you. He's got a bunch of questions, so he's asking if he can contact one or both of us.
I don't have a problem with that. I'd be more than happy to help out where I can.
I've got links to your YouTube and Facebook page in the description, but what's the best place for someone to get a hold of you if they want information or want to get in contact with you?
I've got Instagram. I've got an Instagram account. I've got a Facebook account. Both of them are like MK Motorsports, and one of them's Michael Knapp or Mike Knapp Motorsports. I think I sent you the links to those. So those right there, I'll be more than happy to help out where I can. Even if you post it on the LS or the Low Buck LS page, I'll chime in here and there, so
perfect.
Just tag me in something like that. I'll see it. And I got a lot of seat time on location while I'm watching compressors go. So
right. Yeah, we're both in the same, we're both in the oil and gas industry. That's interesting, but yeah. And for me, you can the Lowbuck LS Facebook group or Facebook page, or just Randy Engler on Facebook. You can tag me or send me an email, randy@lowbuckls.com. So yeah, just wanted to say thanks for coming on. It's been a great conversation. You've had some great information about transmissions and Holleys and all the other good stuff, and nice to talk to somebody else who's, you know, running a heavy truck. And you know, I like I'm a truck guy at heart, so yeah, it's been great having you on. So thanks for
I've enjoyed it. It's been fun chatting, and you know, like I said, just feel free to watch the YouTube channel, and you know, do what they all want you to do, like, subscribe, and share and whatnot.
Yeah.
But you know, I'll have some Holley content coming out here in a little bit. Definitely one with the pedal, because I know that's going to make a lot of people mad, but I don't care.
Right. Yeah, right on. Looking forward to it. I'm looking to learn some of the Holley stuff myself. But okay, right on. Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll wrap this one up. You guys have a good night.
All right, man. We'll see y'all later.
Okay, see ya.